All right. Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing? Good? Excellent. I see we have representation from the World Cup winning Spain in the room. Excellent. If someone in the back wouldn't mind trying to close those doors, I was here in NMOP and it got really noisy from the hallway. You are in the IETF 126 Ops Area Working Group meeting. I am one of your hosts, Joe Clark. This is my other host, Benoit Claes. Say hi, Benoit.
Hi, Benoit.
Thank you for being here. As with all IETF meetings, this is covered under the IETF Note Well. If you have not seen it, please scan that QR code. I'll leave this slide up here for you to read. This is very important. It covers all of your contributions, and it covers the fact that we all want to work with respect for each other. All right, we are also using Meet Echo. Meet Echo is not just a remote participation tool, even though we do have several remote participants. It is also the tool that you'll want to use here in the room in order to join the mic queue. So we do ask that if you are in the room, you join either the light version of the Meet Echo tool, or if you do join with the full version, that you mute your microphone and your speakers so that you don't cause a feedback loop. If you have questions and do want to join the mic queue, please use the raise your hand feature of the Meet Echo tool, and then you can get in line. This helps us keep the who's participating, and it helps for the minutes. And speaking of minutes, we have our distinguished secretary, Chong Fong, over there who will be helping. I've pasted in the Zulip/chat channel the link to our minutes page. If you wouldn't mind, especially if you are speaking, after you sit down, if you could go there and make sure your name, and this includes people who just come up to the mic, make sure your name and what you said was properly reflected in the minutes. That would be very helpful for us after the fact. We have put forth an agenda. Hopefully you've had a chance to see it. If you have, you may be thinking you are in the IP Fix working group meeting, but that is not necessarily the case. This is OPSAWG, and I mentioned Meet Echo, and if there are any technical issues, you can report them in the chat if you can, and we'll try to get the Meet Echo team to address them, or you can come to the mic, and again, we can try to relay that over to our excellent Meet Echo team. I said, I'm Joe, this is Benoit, Chong Fong is our secretary, we had the minutes, we have the materials, we're ready to go. So let's take a look at what has happened in this illustrious working group since last we met in Shenzhen. We have had several RFCs published. I want to congratulate the working group and the authors and all of the participants. Thank you very much. In particular, guidelines for characterizing the term OAM. It was definitely a village effort to get that one through. So again, we thank everyone who participated. This is great work to see us moving, not only in specific like deep areas, but broadly, which is what OPSAWG tends to do. We're creating standardization broadly where it is important, and this is a good thing to see. We're also moving documents forward. We've got a couple in the RFC editor queue. We'll reflect on our milestones in a second. Rashad kind of inspired me to do that in NMOP. And we have a few documents with the IESG with our ADs right now. Of note, and I'm trying not to conflict interest here, we have a document in Working Group Last Call, which is 5706 bis. Benoit and I are both co-authors on this, so all I'll say is because the IETF came up around the time of last call, the person running consensus, Alvaro Ratana, has agreed to extend the last call, so we have more of an opportunity with all of you being here at 126 to provide feedback. So if you wouldn't mind, please read the document, and if you have comments, support, critiques, please post those to the OPSAWG list. There are a set of other drafts, some of which are not going to be presented here. In particular, PCAP is not going to be presented, but the good news is Michael Tuxen provided a Shepherd write-up on the historical PCAP document, and that is now in Mahesh's hands. So that is a good thing. We still need a shepherd for the PCAP, now generic, the NG draft. So if you are interested in stepping up on the participation front and acting as a shepherd, let Benoit or I know. Let us know you're interested. And Benoit, you want to talk a little bit about alternate marking?
Right. So I'm the shepherd actually for the IPFix alternate marking document, and this is a group of documents because there is one Yang module. Actually, there is a second Yang module. There is a deployment guide, and the conclusion is that all these documents are interconnected. And by the way, whenever you're going to present, Giuseppe, even in your presentation, you put all the presentation together, even if you're going to present on a single draft, which proves the point that they must progress together. So that's a comment we made. Why not just move this document into IPPM, or at the very minimum, do the last call together? And maybe one more thing about the IPFix. Is the right time to discuss?
Sure.
So IPFix, we will see that we have a couple of documents that are IPFix related, and we are not specifically the IPFix working group. So most of the time, those IPFix documents relate to technology which is developed somewhere else. And you see one about beer, for example, one about BGP. And exactly like Yang, it might happen directly in those working groups if you believe that you will have more feedback or better technology-specific feedback. Obviously, we're here to help because we know about IPFix. But the point that we want to make with Joe is that those IPFix-related documents don't have to be in this working group.
Thank you, Benoit. I said milestones. So Rashad did this in NMOP, and I thought it was a great idea. This may be hard to read, but these are the completed milestones from our charter that we have accomplished, that you have accomplished. And so thank you very much. We're making excellent progress. As for pending milestones, the good news is, as I mentioned, we were a little late, but we did get the historical PCAP document submitted to the IESG. We're falling a little behind on NG, and Benoit just talked about alternate marking. So we are moving that forward, but there are other documents that need to move forward at the same time there. So I think we've been fairly good on the last recharter, the milestones that we put forth. So thank you and congratulations to the working group. Now, we mentioned, Benoit teased a mention of this with the IPFix thing. We don't tend to get a lot of reviews because we're not that in the T shape of things. We're not very deep. We're very broad in what we cover in OPSAWG. What we would like to recommend is, as opposed to just having us as chairs or Chung Fong as secretary review, if you, especially with these IPFix drafts, if you can't go to the technology area to get the reviews, ask fellow IPFix draft authors, hey, would you review my draft? I can review your draft. We want to make sure that we keep the discussions as vibrant as possible. And we focus on the interest that this working group wants to have so that we're able to get this work moved forward. They're able to meet any objectives that we come up with, any milestones that we come up with. We can't just be the chairs reviewing things. So it's incumbent upon you as authors to find the reviews and get those people to provide the reviews on the mailing list. Something that Paul Aitken has been doing recently with Claude. It's helpful. It's good to get a different perspective, perhaps, but we want to also get those human reviewers to step forward and provide their comments. There is going to be an AI Ops side meeting on Friday. Believe it or not, this is your one respite from AI. There are no AI sessions in OPSAWG this time. However, this side meeting is going to be very interesting. Mahesh is hosting it. He's got a robust agenda up in the wiki. Encourage you to read it. And if you have time Friday morning, please come by and join in the conversation if AI Ops is something that's of interest to you. Moving on to our agenda, I'm not going to read it all to you. Hopefully you did have a chance to look at it in Data Tracker. We do have quite a few IPFix documents that will be presented today, but I will stop for a second and see if there's any agenda bashing to be done. Not seeing any, so I will highlight this red text before I hand it over to our first presenter. Your time as it's been allocated includes discussion time. So please, if you have a lot of slides, try to get to the points that you want to raise and get discussion from the working group while we're here in Vienna. And avoid just reading the slides. Let's get to that discussion because that's the fun part. That's where things get done. With that, I think we are ready to go to our first presenter. And that would be you, Thomas.
Thanks a lot. Perfect. So there are a couple of updates on the export of gigabit passive optical network IPFix document. As you're already aware of, we have two IPFix entities covering the port ID and the PTI on the GEM header. And Zhongfeng made me aware of actually there is also an XGEM header. And in this XGEM header, we also have a port ID. And there are also a couple of other properties like the payload length indicator, so PLI, the key index options, last fragment, and header error control. However, those are more for like tracing debugging options and less about accounting relevant things. So it's really the port ID, and we need to make sure that in the IPFix document, we are addressing that as well. And that's how we did it. So we have the GEMPON, the GPON GEM port ID, and in there we have the references toward the GEM and also the XGEM header. That's basically the main thing. So just to review, the first basically document revision we published in April 2025. Then quickly we had from Polatkin and IENA review. The OPSAWG basically adopted it in September 2025. And then in March 2026, we had the first implementation. And now we received a review from Zhongfeng and also from Paul. Zhongfeng I was able to integrate. From Paul I still need to do, but afterwards I believe the document is ready for working group last call. Any questions, comments, tomatoes?
That was quick, thanks. I think we can do a working group last call.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Scheduled OAM. Chin.
Okay, my name is Qin. So I will give update for this young data model for network diagnosis using scheduled sequence of OOM test. Document status, and since last ITA meeting, actually we get a summary review, especially from Joe Clark, and also we encourage other people to have to review. So we do have Hansa and Hongwei and also Chufang to provide additional comments. So thanks for that. Actually, some of these outstanding issue has been discussed, and we try to resolve in this version. And latest change compared with previous version, such as we justify why ordered by user, and we add clarification on execution counter, and we also make a change, for example, temporary parameter, replace as a young statement, and also we try to reuse some scheduling grouping in already published RFC, and so we found actually frequency and interval should both require, so we make such change, and we also change the young data model prefix, and also we follow the security consideration template, and to make it comply with RFC 9907. But we do have one issue want to discuss in this meeting is about NEID description, and so let's review some of change we have. Actually, the first is change temporary parameter into young statement. Actually, this comes from Hanzai. Actually, but we found some mistake. This identified by Qiu Fang. Actually, so we see it's ordered by the user is not attribute or parameter. It actually is a young statement. So we make this fixed as a back actually. So this change we made. Second one is we clarification on execution count and order by. I think this is common from Joe Clark. And originally we use a different definition. We call the number execution. So we think the definition is not very clear. So and lack clarity. So and also we need to clarify how to use this execution count and order by user. So based on this, actually we change the number execution into the execution count based on the Joe's suggestion. And also we see, we do set the default value for the execution counter, but this actually, is not necessary actually. So we remove this and also we, clarify how to use order by user in this proposed change. And yeah, this is the last one. Actually, it's about the router ID. Whether this root ID is sufficient. Currently we define any ID as a standalone parameter. Not actually. We reference root ID defined obviously 8.2.19.4 actually. This really applied to all the router type, but so some comments raised by Qiu Fang is think whether it can be applied to non-router elements like a L2 switch or firewall, and so it seems the current definition is quite limited. But we revisit this definition for the router ID in the obviously 8.2.94, and we see this also can support various different control plane protocol or layer 2 protocol. So the question to chair and also working group whether this router ID is sufficient, and if not, actually we have a follow-up solution for this. I want to hear some of feedback on this.
Feedback on Chin's question? Oh, okay. I'll go. Is it sufficient if the network element isn't a router?
Yeah, I think we can cover various different network elements, not limited to router.
So what would you pick for that 32-bit number then?
Yeah, I think current not about 64-bit or it's about whether we can apply to some other network element type or like a firewall layer 2 switch maybe
Right.
And host. So we.
I mean, I think you would have to give guidance as to what to pick for the value of that. Like I'm thinking of a layer 2 switch that could have OAM scheduled on it. What would I pick? It's management IP. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is there would need to be some level of guidance if something, if it's not something you're already thinking of as like the router ID. If it's not a router, what would I pick? What value would I recommend I put there?
Yeah. Jeff. Yeah.
So a few observations Jeff has. Context really matters. So for routing protocols, this ID is going to work great. So for things that have tiebacks in OAM to routing protocols is the thing that's exposed. In the context of the individual protocol, it makes sense. I think it's ISIS that has a V6 version of a router ID. This means that you need an additional element as the correlator in that context. The place where this gets messy is that the protocols, even on the same device, don't always have to manifest the exact same router ID, although it is incredibly common. So this means that you need to be capable of handling the context in more than one protocol. The second piece is you're talking about is what happens is if this is not tied to an IP element or a routing element, you're still looking for a magic number to correlate. This is no longer the same thing or sufficient. So don't use this as your only key. The better way to treat this is when you actually have something that you can compare into as a foreign key, this is useful to correlate data. Just don't make it the unique key.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
thank you. Yeah, actually, we come up with the follow-up issue. If sync is not sufficient, actually we have 3 different proposals, and I think we already have any ID or node ID, defined in the network topology-based model. Actually, we can consider to import this type definition. So we, we don't need to. So this is one option. The other one is whether we can import some type definition from Ivy network inventory model. Actually, this I think Qiufang has actually gives such kind of proposal. So we have proposal 3 actually quite different, quite similar actually. Just use a different reference, but in sense actually is the same actually, similar to the type definition in the second proposal. So yeah, we haven't decided which proposal we should take, and yeah, I think yeah, this is what do we have?
It might be good for the authors to settle on one that you think and float that out to the list and say, this is what we think is the best for these reasons. What does the working group think?
Okay, I can summarize for this option, and yeah, we can give our preferred option. So get people feedback. Yeah, so we can see how to close this issue.
I would agree with that as an inner contributor because it's not something specific to your draft. This is a problem in the IETF. We've got 3 IDs there. I could find you some more. The loopback 0 IP address, the UUID in the IETF hardware. So we know that you've got this issue. So pick the one which is the best to you. And to make the link with Jeff, at some point in time, there will be connections between these IDs somewhere, but not specifically in the Yang. It would be a dream to have a single ID. We don't have it.
Makes sense. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, last slides actually, yeah, we did get a few people review, and so we want to ask Chair whether it's ready for working with last call or we can have early young doctor review.
So I think because of what you just described, maybe working group last call isn't ready yet. There's still a question to be answered, a fairly substantive one. That said, I was surprised that we haven't gone for a Yang doctor review for this. So I think we can do that as an early review anyway.
Thank you. Great. Yeah. 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 Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks. Oh, you took control.
I just released it. Okay.
Now,
Giuseppe.
there we go.
It works.
It's going to work.
Hopefully.
It's going to work. I promise. You have every reason to trust me.
Yeah, it works. Yeah, this is an update, as Benoit mentioned before, this is an update about the IPFix altmark document. But I'm going to provide context because this document is part of a set of documents from IPPM. So I'm using the same slides that I will present to IPPM in the next days just to give context to this work. So this is the main document about the deployment framework. I'm not going to present all the slides, but I will just focus on the key points. So this is the main document about the deployment framework. As you can see in this document, there is the overall framework, the overall architecture about how to deploy the altmark. And in particular, there are several documents that are referenced by this architecture, of course, the Young model, PSEP, BGP extensions, but in relation to IPFix, in particular for data export, two documents are relevant, the IPFix that is in OPSAWG and the IPPM on path telemetry Young. Of course, these documents have a broader scope in order to define where to deploy alternate marking, control a domain, the type of measurements that can be enabled, and so on. You can look at the document. Yeah, these are the changes from after the working group plus call, because this document was already concluded the working group plus call in IPPM. I'm going to skip this slide. So the other related document, of course, are the Young data model for the alternate marking method. This is the reference if you are interested, if you want to have a look. Also, this document was in working group plus call in IPPM, and we apply the changes that will be described in IPPM in the next days. Also, the draft on the on-path telemetry Young that included both alternate marking but also IOM Young push extensions. And these are the changes from the last version. And finally, related to OPSAWG, we have the IPFix document. Yeah, just a quick recap. This document is quite straightforward. So it just requests IANA to create new information elements, because with alternate marking, for those of you are familiar with this methodology, each node need to export telemetry data at each period for each monitored flow. And it's possible to use a combination of existing information elements and new information elements. The existing information elements, of course, are source address, destination address, protocol, and ports that are not mandatory to be used. But new information elements are really important because are related to the flow monitoring identifier, the loss flag, the delay flag, and the period ID, which are defined in the RFC 9343 for IPv6 and for MPLS in the 9714. Thanks to Benoit, so for the detailed review of the comments, we address all the comments in the last version. In particular, I want to mention that we improved the description of flow aggregation, correlation, and measurements. We also changed the name to be aligned with the naming convention, so the naming of the information elements. We also clarify that there are two options for the computation: a centralized and NMS computation, and the computation on each node aligned with RFC 9951. Of course, we also revised the cross-references between the different Young and IPFix documents in order to help the implementer to understand what are the corresponding parameters between Young and IPFix. And of course, we added the operational consideration sections. Just a few words about the next steps to stay in 5 minutes. So the first two documents, the deployment one and the alternate marking Young, just concluded working group plus call. I agree that, of course, the two Young model will need to be reviewed together to check the consistency, also together with the IPFix alternate marking document. The IPFix alternate marking document is quite stable, can be ready for possibly a joint OPSAWG IPPM working group plus call. So, of course, comments, questions.
So, Mahesh, on the last document, the IPFix alt mark, I believe there was an expert review from Paul Atkins, and he had two substantive comments, and I didn't see a response necessarily on the mailing list. Have they been addressed?
Yes. Do you mean to IPFix the IPFix documents? Yeah, yeah. The comments should be addressed.
Okay. Maybe then I must have missed that email then.
Okay.
Well, speaking of Paul.
Yeah, I'm just going to make the same comment as Mahesh, just that I did not see feedback and I was expecting to see a new version of the document or comments or something before I do the performance metrics review.
Okay, yeah, we can further discuss. Anyway, I for sure I have address in my local. I don't remember. I have to check, but in my local version I should have that address. But now the submission windows is just reopened, so maybe I will publish in the coming days to.
And don't forget follow up to
Yeah,
the list.
yeah, I will follow up on the list. Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing on the list. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Cozy.
Hello, so we are going to explain some updates coming from the Yang provenance signatures. In China, we asked for the review in IANA, SecDir, and as well Yang Doctors Review. So the first version that we updated, it was to address these comments. In the SecDir review, we added a threat model in the security considerations that they asked in the review. We also have been talking with IANA and experts on SEED for the implementation of CBOR that we brought to China. And we have the opportunity to talk with them this morning. So they told us to ask for a pre-allocation of the seed ranges to the IANA, and they will comment on that, but mainly they will just compile that everything works, and that's it. And lastly, the Young Doctors Review that they bring us the canonicalization of Yang, that as we are doing it with different canonicalizations for each serialization, using JSON schema, JSON canonization schema, CBOR and XML canonicalization, to bring it in a semantic way that can be more interoperable between different formats. We believe that maybe this can be addressed in another draft, as it could be open for another use cases, and we are looking for a proof of concept of this work and find a solution for this. For the next version is what we wanted to bring into Vienna, which were the multi-signatures. What we encountered is that using only cozy sign, you had to add all the signatures at the same time. And with the counter signatures, we find that we can address the same content, but at different points in time. So we can provide a traceability of this content, validating all the signatures or just one of them. This doesn't change the cause mechanisms. It just only adds to the header the new counter signature when they receive the content, another type of device or collectors. And it doesn't define a new signature structure. This was validated yesterday on the hackathon. We always bring into the hackathons the reference implementation. And lastly, for the version 07, it was just a small detail that was coming from Montreal, that is the leaf ordering, the leaf ordering that in Yang is not a constraint. So in the notification envelope, we delete that paragraph. This is a recap on the hackathon project that we showed yesterday, where we updated the library to support these counter signatures with the 3 serialization formats. And it was validated not only with our project, but in collaboration with a Young Push project, and also with other type of use cases like attestation for agents. And what comes next is that we are still pursuing these reviews. For the SecD review, we addressed the comments and we only need the confirmation that everything was resolved. But in the IANA and Jack doctors, we have to still work on that. Then the big important thing is the young canonicalization to be interoperable between formats. And that since this Saturday, we have been having a lot of alignments and collaborations with our young provenance signature in different use cases. We always give a reference implementation. Yesterday, we got a new implementation on Erlang. We always work on Java. And I would say that the content of the draft is mature, but for the last call, and the only updates would be for reviews. That's it.
Rob Wilson, Cisco. So thank you. I finally got a chance to sort of look at this draft in detail on the flight out of here. I think it's really good work and really interesting. I have some comments. I will put them on the list, but I haven't sort of typed them up, but I'll sort of raise them here. So one of the things I noticed is the signature you generate is tied to the encoding that you use. So if you have a data pipeline that wants to normalize, say, data coming from a collector provided in JSON and CBOR, and say normalize it either to JSON upstream or to CBOR upstream, you're going to lose that signature. It's going to be invalid effectively because the signature is tied to the original encoding, and if you change that encoding on the way through, then you're going to lose that. So it's something to think about. I'm not sure there's a solution, but just be aware of. The other thing I noticed, you had different, I can't remember the name of the head of the security context. You had a leaf for XML and for JSON and CBOR, but with CBOR you had both the SID encodings, like the binary identifiers, and also the leaf, the string identifiers. And I think that the checksum you calculate for those two, or the signature, will be different. So you might want to split out to have a CBOR strings and a CBOR typed identifiers as 2 different things from that. And then the last question I had was, it talks about normalizing the Yang data before you apply the signature, which makes sense, that's necessary. It wasn't clear to me in the draft whether that means when you send the data on the wire, it's also meant to be normalized, or it's just the signature calculation, if that makes sense. As in, are you meant to normalize the data before you send it and then you apply the signature, or is it just the signature calculation that's required to normalize the data?
Okay. Yes, there are a lot of questions. I would say that what we do is to normalize it, to add it to calculate the signature. But what we want is to, if we want to receive the same content but in a different order, to be valid in both ways, as for example, for young data stores, that maybe is represented in a different way, but it should be valid in both ways. This is something that we have encountered with this young doctor's review, and we will try to do something about it.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Per Andersson. Thank you for this work. I think it's really great. We were also in the hackathon as well. I'm very happy to see, for instance, counter signatures, to be able to have more signatures than only one for the content. I think the normalization of the data, especially at rest, is really important because that makes it able to detach the data, the signature from the data, and verify it on both. Sign it on one end and verify it on another end. One thing with that is what happens if you send sparse data. Instead of sending, say, the entire interfaces list, you send only 3 out of 5. How does that work at the other end? So that's something to think about as well with existing solutions of Merkle trees and so on. So thank you.
Mahesh, so I'm not going to repeat, but I do support both Rob and Per's comment on normalization of the data itself. One question that I did have was around that Yang-Lint augment structure errors, and whether, do we know that that's a tooling issue or is that a modeling issue, and have we resolved that question?
Can you repeat the tooling for it?
So I believe you have an issue with the augment structure errors. I think you mentioned that somewhere. And whether that has been resolved or not, whether that it's a tooling error or not.
We don't use tooling, is something manual. Maybe we can check and come back to you.
Okay, I can probably send you a more direct pointer to, I think it was mentioned in one of the reviews. Thank
you. Real quick on our part, you mentioned last call here, but you also have a big elephant in the room. So we're a little confused. We don't see if it's stable if you have a big rather than a small elephant, but you have the elephant in the room. So can you don't have to clarify it here, but we maybe on list, you can clarify what your intent is. If you're going to work on proof of concept and it's going to change your draft, that feels fairly substantive. If you decide that that's for something else, then I think we need to close that issue before we move this to last call.
Yes, what we intended is to move this into another draft because we think that for this draft is out of scope, or maybe it can be used in use cases that doesn't require this young same representation problem. But for other use cases, for example, when we are working with Kafka, you send the same message, so we don't have that problem. So what we tried is to open another draft and address this, and after that.
I feel obliged to make a clarification. The point is that young canonicalization is a problem that has appeared. Well, I prefer to call it young normalization, not canonicalization, because this young normalization is a problem that has appeared regarding to the data stores, not to the exchange of data. So that's why this is intended for the exchange of data, and the idea is that problem that has appeared, we have the intention to address it in another document, because we believe that the intention of this document, the original intention, is covered. That's
okay, so you don't plan any substantive changes?
No.
Okay.
What we plan is that, for example, the review from the security area is clear, for example. And okay. We have addressed it already, and that's it.
Okay, thank you. Velos, however you want to pronounce it. Mahesh.
I don't know. Everyone has a different way of pronouncing it. All right. Thank you. So I think since the last discussion, or I believe we have adopted the document as a workgroup document. So thank you. So I should probably be updating this slide. So I'm just going to quickly run through the status, but I really want to spend most of the time having some discussion around at least 3 questions that the group of authors and contributors are working on. Since the last publication of the individual ID was published, we have had 6 peers and 11 new issues. I won't go through them here. You just go to the GitHub to get all the details. Right now, we have 22 issues that we have broadly classified into 6 clusters. probably anywhere from easy to really hard discussions that we need to go through, some of which I'll talk about in subsequent slides. We have 7 open PRs that are still under review and discussion. We have a requirement now that at least 2 authors/contributors have to approve before any submission is accepted, any PR is accepted. But now that it's a workgroup document, even that process will have to change. All right, so the first question that I wanted to pose to the working group is, where should the repos live? So we have 3 options that are being debated currently. That the repos where the Yang is going to be developed can be in GitHub. It could be in IETF GitLab, or the third option, actually the third option is through what we are discussing now is through INR registry, and final option is being platform agnostic, where we don't as such dictate or define where the repo should exist, but just the requirements for what the repo has to be able to provide. So this is more a question. I can either pause now or wait for people to ask questions at the end. What would you prefer? On this particular question, there are no comments.
I have, Chin, great.
Yeah, for these several options, I think GitHub is widely used by many working groups. So I favor, the option A. Option B could be another option. But I'm not familiar with it. But I checked some of working group in some otherwhere. They do use GitLab. So so I favor to using the option A. And for INR registration, I don't think INR is used for to maintain this young data model. So yeah, that's my thinking.
Okay, so just to, you do realize that we do maintain INR-based Yang modules through INR. So there is a certain amount of precedence to this, which we can follow if we want to do it for all Yang modules. That precedence is there for us, and yeah, really that clarification.
So you think INR registry for the INR maintain the young data model, right?
That's
not a whole young data model. Okay.
Italo Busi. My concern is the timing. We need to develop Veloce. And BNC looks has some advantages, but I'm afraid that by the time we develop all the environment, we delay a little bit the start of the experiment, and it will take a lot of time to write down all the requirements to make sure that everything is sorted out. So I was wondering whether we can start with option A as the quick and dirty solution, and then figure out whether to move to B, C, or D as the long-term strategy. That's my thinking. Thank you.
I believe that since we are going to change something that has been a long time practice in the IETF, I would prefer to see the data within the IETF environment and using Git like a mechanism. I'm very much in favor of option B, even if that implies that maintainers will have to learn a few tricks, among other things, because the goal, I assume that the goals of Veloce is not being extremely agile in testing and developing. It's about once you have something that is clear, put there. So it's going to be, I mean, the kind of activity is not going to be the full goal of software development. So let's keep data within the IETF is my recommendation or my preference.
So just one comment. I think plenty of people have pointed out that the fact that we are mentioning GitHub seems to imply that, yeah, we have no control over the data. Now, supposedly we have a relationship, meaning in the sense we are probably paying for that service, and therefore it's not that we don't have control over the data that is in GitHub, but yes, it does reside in a third location.
Because one thing is using it for developing the document that afterwards comes to the data tracker. So it's perfectly fine, but at the end, the RFCs are in the data tracker and the drafts are in the data tracker, not in the GitHub. So that's
okay. I can't tell. I hope I'm next in the queue. Rob Wilson. So I think it's also almost been raised. I think the question is, what's the archival quality of the data that's required? So the Velocity project, I thought, was an experimental short-term thing to start off with. And then I don't think it really matters where you put it. So in some senses, I would shove it in GitHub to make it easy to start off with, but with a plan to move it potentially to GitLab, as Diego suggests, down the line. But if the long-term plan is, actually, we need to have this somewhere where we control and maintain it and allow it to be developed and be around for a long period of time, then GitLab might be a better choice. I don't quite know what the relationship is between GitLab and how if we run that completely ourselves. The last comment I would like to make is regarding IANA. And I agree that I think you've got this choice between where you're sort of developing the Yang models, and I still think you'll end up developing like a cutting edge version of it. At some point, you're going to need to publish those to some level of consensus. And at the point you publish them, I think IANA is the right place to say, okay, here's the latest version of this published and has some level of working group or IETF consensus.
Right. On that IANA registry point, you're right that I think we have certain way of tracking that today, even with the IANA-based modules. So we could reuse that tracking mechanism that we have in IANA for all Yang modules. So.
Dhruv, so regarding IANA, I would not consider this as a clear option for this question, because we can't say that IANA registry is a repo. It can still just be a registry to point to the latest model, but if you want to do the actual work of what we want to do with Veloce, we can't just say that, oh, it's going to just be IANA. So I think that's a separate question that we need to answer. Now, I think when we are having this discussion, it would be useful to say what to write in the experiment. And when you are actually doing the experiment, what mechanism will you choose? So right now, if we have clubbed the two questions together, what we could do is we can say that while doing an experiment, you must have like if we take option D as a case, that when you are doing an experiment, make sure you have a repo. It should have these properties. And then each working group, when they are making a decision, they can go by what makes sense for them. That would be much more easier for us to make progress. Otherwise, we'll end up debating on this point for a very long time.
So yeah, thank you for pointing out that, yes, behind the IANA registry is also some kind of repo that is being used. That is true. What I guess I should have pointed out is, what is the reference point? Is it a GitHub location or is it the IANA registry? I think that's more clear, the question that we are trying to get an answer to.
Yeah, Jeff, I was building on some of the points that Dhruv made. We have three things that are sort of occupying this set of questions. One is the thing that we're using. In this case, we're choosing Git. We know from other things that IETF has used that are open source, that are open-ish, like rsync, that we get ourselves in the trouble long future. We need a path out of being able to recover our data for the future. So that should be a background requirement. Second piece is, out of the infrastructure involved, I've used GitHub and GitLab. GitLab is perfectly fine for storing files, and it has one of the worst review systems I've used in years. So usability, I think, is for the short-term goals of this project, something that urges us towards GitHub. And the third piece there is, where does this stuff live and get pointed to? As long as portability is a long-term plan, really what we need is a long-term way to find wherever something happens to be. We should expect that our data gets archived at some point and moved somewhere else.
Yeah, I've already solved this for you. It's on my MySpace page, right? Like, this is the problem of, if we put this on GitHub, what's going to happen is at some point in the next 50 years, GitHub will go away and then we'll be screwed. So as long as we have a plan to archive it from wherever we have it to somewhere else, right, we can deal with this. But let's do something friendly for now, but make sure that we have a real plan for what we do when this service actually goes away.
Yeah. Well, Arsenio Eriksson, we are actually doing this in 3GPP already. Users prefer a Git interface, so A or B for me at least. And 3GPP said that they want control. So GitHub is too loose for control. They go with an own GitLab host.
Okay, thanks.
And I think maybe this is good for a vote.
Okay, Italo Busi again. I have one comment on the YANA registry, which along the line maybe to what Ru said. As far as it is today, with the YANA registry, you cannot do something which you can do with GitHub, like the diff. And in my opinion, if you want Veloce to be successful, we need to have a mechanism like the GitHub pull request that forces the reviewer to look only at the changes. Because the big issue I found when we do the BIS is because people have all the models, review all the models, and 99.99% of the comments that you get are not on the changes, are on something that you didn't intend to change. And you spend hours and weeks addressing those comments instead of publishing the change. So it's very important to me that it's during the review phases, the review is forced to be on some tool that focus on what are the changes. YANA registry as a final repository, I don't see any issue, but for the progress, I think we need something like a pull request. And then if you go to D, then we have to write it down all these requests. That's why I was saying GitHub as a first step, so we have everything, we know how it works, and we can do better later.
Okay, I've clearly run out of time. So on just question number 1, so I'm not even going to try to present the remaining slides. I'll take it to the mailing list.
Thank you.
Very good. Good news. You've got people interested. Michael.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for giving me some time to present our draft. So I presented it for the first time at 125, but a quick reminder, we're talking about fundamentals and guidance regarding security operations. In the draft, we go into a bit more detail of what we mean by security operations. But in general, security operators are people who work to defend their network from cyber attacks or recover their network once they've discovered an incident. They typically work in a security operations center or a SOC. People who work in the SOC might be cybersecurity analysts. They might be network engineers. In the draft, we've called all of them security operators, and this is some of the stuff that they care about. So the purpose of the draft is to help protocol designers consider impacts for security operators when they're designing their protocol. It's heavily inspired by the work that went into 5706 BIS, so thank you to the authors for that. There is some text in there to help with this, but it's a wider conversation, so we added it to a separate draft. I should say the guidance in there is meant to be a tool to help protocol designers. It's not a mandate to include these considerations, but it's meant to prompt thoughts about what are we changing, how might that impact people. Can we mitigate that? Can we document that? So since IETF 125, we received a bunch of reviews, so thank you so much for that. I think we received 11 or 12 reviews, both on the list and off the list, from a range of people with different backgrounds, so that was really useful. So we've actioned a bunch of that input. I did want to say a couple of words on that penultimate bullet point about more detailed privacy considerations. We've added some text there. That was a really good point that was made in a couple of places on list, because there is perhaps a tension there. Security operators require a really good understanding of what's going over their network, and that on the face of it, that can appear at odds with an attempt to kind of minimize access to that data. In contrast, security operators, if they're preventing data breaches, might improve that privacy. So it really depends on the situation, on the network, on the system, about the required level of observability. This draft doesn't make an attempt to say what the right thing to do there is. It's very much down to the situation. But please do review that section because I think it's an important one to get right. There's a few more additions that we'd like to make. So we received quite fair feedback that the original 0.0 draft had a lot of focus on enterprise and perhaps less on operators or large-scale operators. We've attempted to add some text there in terms of thinking about dynamic networks or large-scale networks. But that's not really my area of expertise, so we'd really appreciate any input of text that can help out with that. Similarly, on logging, at the moment, the guidance is quite general to be broadly applicable. But if you have specific examples of where logging is useful, where there's value, where change in protocol might affect that, that would be really useful for kind of motivating examples. We've got a couple more outstanding reviews from the list that we didn't get time to review before and to action before the cutoff. So thank you to Adrian and thank you to Mark for those. In particular, from Mark's review, he provided really good insight on the section regarding tooling, where I think we're going to change the focus a little bit to focus on the capability of the tooling rather than the specific tooling products themselves. So we'll look to do that in the next version. Is that working? Okay. Next steps. So there's a few things for us as the authors to do, as I just mentioned on the last slide. We'd also really appreciate input of text from the working group, where you will have expertise that I don't have. The other thing that we're seeking in terms of next step is some guidance from the working group, from the chairs, about what we need to do to move this draft closer towards a place where it's ready for adoption. We think we've got some quite good text there, but we're looking for support, some interest, and any guidance about where we are with that. So I'll pause there. Thank you.
So Chongfang and myself, we reached out to some of our colleagues. Mark was one of mine that gave feedback on this, but they're not typically IETF, let alone, or OPSAWG, let alone IETF contributors. So we have a poll for you here in the room and online. Are you interested in seeing this work progress in OPSAWG? This is kind of an unofficial, kind of get towards that adoption poll. This is interesting work, I feel, as speaking personally from a security operations standpoint, but do we have interest in this working group and seeing this progress? Yes, no, or no opinion? Oh, I was just going to say, I think the velocity is slowed, but people are still voting, or sorry, showing hands. Well, I think you see most people, and I don't know if the no opinions have read the draft or not, probably not read the draft yet. There does seem to be at least one person who says no. I don't know if that person wants to make a comment as to why they don't feel, or they're just not interested. Maybe that's just a personal thing. But there are some support for yes.
And one thing I would like to observe is that I'm not surprised by the results, because actually this is the ops people, and we're not really into security. I mean, we could say NOC and SOC, they work together, but they're not like the same people, which was also the feedback, what we've been brainstorming on, trying to reach out to some real security experts. So we don't want to say that this is bad, an opinion. It means that the people here maybe don't have the background to review the draft, right?
Jeff.
Thank you for saying exactly that. So I spend a good chunk of my IETF time dealing with the fact that the security people live in their own very special world. And I think if you were to go to the security open meeting SAG, if you haven't actually done so already, I think you're going to see exactly the same feedback in reverse. They're going to say, the security pieces here are clear, but you're really having an ops story. There is no single home for the joint work. So, so the best thing you're going to be able to do without actually getting the groups to decide to cooperate together, and you can actually do, pick one home for the work and span it across places. That does happen regularly in the IETF, but that doubles the amount of work that you end up having to do to join it out. What you're really better off doing is finding some willing participants as a design team type behavior, working on it across the working groups, and then last calling both places with the chairs.
Thank you. That's really useful advice. We have shared it with the OPSAWG mailing list, but yeah, a little bit more work to do to get people involved. Thank you.
Chong-Fong?
Yes, I actually have mentioned this before because I think most people in OPSWG have enough security background, so it's very difficult for us to make the decision whether this work can be appropriate or can be useful, for writing a future document. Yeah, that's my concern. Okay.
Thank you.
But anyway, you've got things to do in the meantime.
Yeah, we've got some work to do, but thank you.
And I think you've got, as we just talked about privately, you've got some people who can bring more feedback to the list. And if you can have the SOG people, if they've given you any feedback, to tell them to cross-post over to us as well.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, as we said, we've reached out to a few people, so we'll keep doing that. Thank you.
All right, so quick transport for network telemetry. Can you please put a timer?
Super.
So the problem is that we have a couple of protocols, management protocols that are UDP based, right? It's not a problem, but because you accept to lose a couple of packets, typically YANG push UDP notif or syslog or radius or IPFix. So the scope of this document is about push telemetry for management and data plane. So the issue as well is that we have fragmented certificate management, one per protocol. And depending, no mandatory transport security. There is nothing for syslog. There's IPFix, DTLS is optional. YANG push UDP notif, DTLS is optional. And sometimes weak authentication with radius. So the idea is to say, can we reuse Quick to solve that issue and carry all these UDP-based protocol into Quick? That would reuse obviously TLS 1.3, which is combined with Quick. We would have in there 2 bytes to demultiplex the type of telemetry per protocol. And in this case, because Quick could be initiated from both sides, in this case, we say the scope is router-initiated telemetry. In Quick, you've got the datagram frames or the stream frames. So what about we use the datagram, for all these things like sending flow records? If we lose one, it's not the end of the world. But we would inherit from Quick authentication, encryption, integrity, congestion control, if it's important, and the connection ID for the connection migration. I'll come back to that. So the example, IPFix data record, syslog. Now, in case we have a couple of telemetry messages that are important to be reliable, we could also think of that. IPFix templates, YANG push on change, those are quite important to be sent reliably. And the last slide, so I want to get discussions, is what would be the advantages? First of all, we have a unique node ID. Because right now, this is seen from a collector, it's the IP address of the source packet. So the outgoing interface of the router. And this connection ID would survive a failover of the interface, right? So we still have the same unique ID as we were mentioning in one of the previous presentation. So the connection migration without re-authentication, thanks to the connection ID from Quick. A single connection for instead of all these DTLS ones. A single certificate lifecycle. Enhanced security coming from TLS 1.3. And there is even a way to describe how to do anycast, which is sometimes interesting whenever you want to send to multiple collectors via a single IP address. So that's where I'm going to stop to get discussion. I see people on the line.
So, James Cumming, Nokia. If I thought I heard you right when what you said, you were going to restrict this to dialing out. Was that right? And if so, what was the reasoning for that rather than doing it for both?
Because there are a lot of something over quick. And in there, we want you to just focus on the telemetry part. It's just a question of scope. In the end, there is nothing that prevents you to say it's going to be initiated from the collector.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, because dial-in telemetry is pretty common as well.
I don't disagree. I mean, we didn't want to be like management foo protocol over quick and say, okay, we're going to do NetConf and BMP and everything because there are already a lot of documents and maybe they serve a purpose and maybe just for telemetry in dial out, there is something to be done.
Jeff Haas, and you're heading to the point I wanted to hit. My work in Quick is still mostly academic. One of the bits of warning we've been given is the token management for the individual streams means that you have to be very careful exactly how you're pushing stuff based on what the receivers are capable of doing. Many of your use cases here are potentially high speed, like IPFix. So if you start putting everything over the same connection, I think you're going to run into some interesting flow control issues. This is something that the Quick Working Group will have opinions about. Please ask about it.
Thank you.
And we are close to time, so if you have comments, please keep them very, very brief.
Thanks for this work. Is it me and Q or you, Rob? Okay. So I'm thinking of the definitions needed for the UDP notif, for instance. Is it underspecified in this draft for Yang push? Because you need to be able to put where the receiver is and so on in the subscriptions container, for instance. Does this go in here or is that some other work? Because now it will just say UDP notif for this if you reuse UDP notif, and that might be necessary. Good to know if it's actually quick.
We will need to have that. Where it's going to be, I'm not sure yet.
To compress my comments down, this is good work. Carry on. I'll give you some comments on list.
Chin.
Actually, you still have another slide. Yeah, you define the telemetry header extension. It seems like a quick extension, right? So I think this maybe requires some review from WIT area or some. Like,
of course.
Okay.
And there is a session from Per in the ops area, and it's also discussed in the WIT open area. Not specifically this draft, but management over quick.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. I'm Yisung Liu, China Mobile. I will present the export of beer information in IPFix on behalf of my co-authors. Beer is a innovative multicast forwarding architecture, so it's not require explicit tree building protocols and not need to maintain the per flow state. So it has own specific packet header. The existing IPFix IEs cannot export their the flow parameters. So this draft will define the dedicated beer IPFix IEs. Last IETF, we have the presentation at the beer working group, and we have received the positive feedback. So we removed the BIFT ID. So because the BIFT ID indicated the local routing table, but we it's a low value for this for this draft, and so we add 3 new elements: SD and I and the encap type. So we have defined 12 new IPFix IEs to the beer information elements. So the new IEs can answer the questions like this. For example, is this packet a beer packet? What the type and the what are the SD and SI and the payload or the BFER? That means the destination of the beer packet. So first part of the IEs for the beer forwarding, including the beer SD, SI and the encap type, and also the important field for the bitstream. Bitstream means that together with the SDSI, it can identify all the destination BFER, that all the receivers. And next one is the BFIR ID, that's an ingress router of beer, and a TTL for the beer. The second part is the packet contact IE. Including the next protocol and the version and the bitstream length. The third part is the additional handling and the OEM information elements, and including the entropy for used by the load balance for the beer packet, and the DSCP for the queues, and also the OEM for the in-band OEM function. So we seek for more feedback from the working group and welcome the involvement in this proposal. Thank you. That's all.
No comments? Oh, thank you.
For the next one.
So this is the beer one, right? Yeah. So you mentioned that you received good feedback from the beer working group, right?
Yeah. We have a present in the beer group, working group.
So this is typically one of those documents where I was thinking in the beginning, okay, this is IPFix, but if you receive pretty good feedback from the beer working group, I mean, IPFix has been there for many, many years, feel free to go to that working group. It doesn't mean that we are pushing you out of the working group, but where do you get the most feedback? If it's in that place, request it there, the call for adoption. And maybe that's something that we want to do along with Mahesh and send this to the beer work group chairs and agree between the ADs on what we do here. Because I foresee we're going to have more and more of those drafts that are, technically specific, but done here because we used to do it.
Okay. The second of my presentation is about the export of beer POV in IPFix. RFC 6811 defines the BGP POV mechanisms. So the purpose of this draft, we define the IPFix IEs of this mechanism. So this draft can address the gap in the current IETF standards to monitor the POV. And it can only and also can enhance the network observability by the transfer from the local validation state of the BGP routes into the IPFix state, and also enable the operators to detect the potential route hijacks and improve the network security. This is the definition of the IPFix IE of the BGP POV. Named as a BGP prefix origin validation state, and the value is defined by an unsigned integer. 0 means that valid, and 1 means the not found, and 2 means the invalid, and it aligns with the RFC 8097. We have some good discussion in the mailing list and have some valuable feedback. And firstly, we thanks for the Jeff for the comments on the IE designs. For the version 1, of this draft, we update the modified the IE description with the reference to the definition in RFC 8097, and change the data format for the unsigned integer rather than a bit vector, and added a reference to the RFC 8893 to clarify the IE. The information expected by the IE is the result of the this API application policy, and added the deployment considerations for the scenarios where the BTP POV validation function is not enabled or the router is the root is non-active. Secondly, we thanks to the Chongfeng for the comments on relationship with the existing IEs. So for the draft version 1, we update for the validation state. We mean the validation state is obtained by the comparing the BGP update prefix or AS with the local RPK VIP cache, then exported to the IPFix collector. So the valid BGP routes corresponding to traffic flows. So the exported BGP POV validation state serves as a root validity attribute for the corresponding BGP flows. So our draft focus on the comparison or the verification between the local BGP POV and the RPKI, which is distinct from the issues addressed by the ID existing ID of the 294. Thirdly is that thanks to Haiyan and Jeff for the scope clarification, and for the version 2, we add the clarification. The IE is scoped to the local RAID, simply because the IPFix exporter typically monitor the installed forwarding state. So for the inactive routes, backup routes, and the routes not selected outside of the scope of the draft. So welcome more reviews, comments, and questions. So we co-authors think that the draft has a very good discussion, and we would like to request a working group adoption. Thank you.
Any feedback on this one?
Paul.
Oh, Paul.
Benoit, this is a comment to the chair, to you. I would prefer personally if the IPFix documents would remain in this working group, because it's one place to track them rather than having maybe lots of drafts across different working groups. Makes it a bit more tricky to follow what's going on.
And Paul, you speak from a pure interest point of view, or like an IPFix designated expert?
Maybe both, but if one person is trying to track, or if he's trying to see what's going on there, you're following documents across the whole of the IETF, that's a bit tricky. So yes, it's personal motivation, yes.
All right. Because I was about to say that I gave the example of beer before, which is in a different area. In this case, you've got the GROW working group, Mr. Paolo, and checking a charter, it says monitoring as well, right? So you do BMP, you do Yang. I mean, how far are you from IPFix? So, okay, we'll discuss with the ADs on what to do on all these. I understand, Paul, from a just pure IPFix interest, it might be easier to have it here, but regardless, there will be communication with this working group on IPFix related documents. At least that's the way that I foresee this, even if it's done in a different working group.
Sure. So I would say only that the What's the purpose of the draft? It's to request some new information elements, right?
The purpose of the draft is just to request IP fix information elements. The purpose of the draft is just to request IP fix information elements.
Yeah.
The answer is yes, Paul. And your point on this is that maybe a draft is not needed. Is this your point?
No, that only that it's within the remit of this group to do that. Am I wrong?
You didn't get that.
So Paul, Paul's saying it's in the remit of OPSAWG to do that. It is, but I also look at this akin to like Yang, and not all Yang modules go through netmod. There are ways to rope in experts for IP fix, like yourself, that you don't necessarily have to follow everything directly. It would be incumbent on chairs in these other working groups to seek out the experts to provide the IP fix. The question that Benoit and I have is, would you get better review, substantive review on the underlying technology and how IP fix interacts with that in those individual working groups versus always coming to OPSAWG? And we want the best technology, the best solutions to go forward. And that's why we were suggesting maybe some of these could be done in those more technology specific working groups.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Rob Wilton. So not comment on this draft in particular, but on this discussion about where to do the work for IP fix. I note that I come to AWG, I'm interested in half the work, and the IP fix stuff I'm not actually that interested in. And again, in terms of reviews and things, I think that you either need to move IP fix, as you say, out to other working groups, or maybe you do it, you split the sessions and do one session on non-IP fix and one IP fix, and different people come, doesn't help with the reviews. Or maybe, Mahesh, it's worth spinning up an IP fix maintenance working group that so the experts, people to work on that, go to that one. But at the moment, I feel that it's a bit heavy on OPSAWG to have so much IP fix stuff, maybe, but it's not my issue.
If I understand you, you want to have like a virtual IP fix meeting that you don't attend, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Jeff has, again, to the discussion rather than to the draft, picking an IDR for this draft. The expertise in IDR is about the routing. This is taking forwarding state and decorating it with routing data. A number of the IP fix no use cases are going to be, this is how we actually talk about the forwarding. And that's not necessarily what the core working groups you're going to be talking to need to do. They're just simply providing supplementary data. So this doesn't fit really in either home. Here we have the expertise about how the IP fix works. I agree, you don't want to make this the only agenda item, find a way to split it. This is something that can probably go off to interims. But in terms of cross review, again, this has been presented, I believe, in IDR at least once. And they are getting the review that's appropriate for it. But the majority of the review is very small. They're representing the state directly, the rest of it's encoding.
Final word.
Mahesh, again, not as Rob said, not particularly this particular document, but in general about the ability to make sure that Paul is getting flagged on every IP fix document. My understanding was that it gets captured as part of expert review during, I don't know what stage, I want to say working group last call. INA picks it up and flags it that there's an expert review required, at which point Paul is sent a pointer to say, do the review. It doesn't matter which working group it comes from, but maybe I'm wrong. And if that process is missing, that certainly can be added.
The thing is that Paul have been more active specifically with his friend Claude lately to provide feedback on the mailing list, and somehow this is good as well. So I understand his point of view as well. So we'll take it offline, and the ADs are going to decide, I guess.
Yeah, so just want to mention when we're talking about what working group to do in, if you look at BFD, for example, the core BFD stuff is in BFD. There's not much more of that going on, but all the BFD over X, over Geneva, whatever, they occur in the specific working group and not in BFD. So for me, something like that, if it's beer, it makes sense that it would be in beer, as an example.
Thank you.
But we review, yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. you again.
Yeah. Talking about IPFix. Other IPFix, other information element export in IPFix. So I'm going to be quick to give a couple of references and more time for discussion and save time in the end. So we've got metering process on the left. They create flow records. Then the exporting process export the IPFix messages, and the collecting process is trying to make sense out of the data. The issue is that sometimes we've got multiple instances of the same IPFix information elements. So what do we do in those cases? MPLS, SRv6, destination IP address. On the right-hand side, the collector cannot deduce what has been done on the router, because on the router, it says on the left that you should follow the logical order of the treatment. It's a should. How does the collector knows it was expected or not? It doesn't. There are no ordering signal. There are multiple use cases. On this slide, I just want to show one point. It's valid for template records and options template records, like the last PSAM tell you there that PSAM, there is a must. It must be in the application order whenever you've got multiple selector IDs, filtering, hashing, etc. But PSAM is based on IPFix, which has a should. So it's like, yeah, there is something to be done there. So how do we communicate from the router to the collector that the order was respecting along the tool chain? We have two new set IDs, 4 and 5 in red there, for ordered template and order options template. This is the explicit message coming from the router to the collector. And this document, as a consequence, updates multiple specifications. First, the one from IPFix, because the metering process must record the repeated information in the right order. The exporting process must preserve this, and the collecting process must interpret this that way. So must along the tool chain. Now, in the case of PSAMP, there's an update because the PSAMP spec should be, must be using the new set IDs. Otherwise, you don't signal it. And finally, if you got a mediation box, mediation function, a mediator, at the end, you must preserve the order if you receive in the right order. So last slide and feedback so far. This is a real problem, and we knew it because we had one draft in the past about multiple instances of information elements. Joe has got a proposal to split this into two parts, the functional part and the IPFix information element. It makes sense. Joe saw a very good point that it's not an opt-in as mentioned, because even for PSAM, it's a must. We must be changing the specification. Paolo has two interesting points, telling in some situation, if I take an MPLS set of labels, how many do we have? We don't know. So maybe in that case, instead of telling I've got one template with one template with two, one template with three, let's have a list. How do we signal this? By telling it's an ordered basic list. Specifically, it's a new data type. And he's telling, you know, you're solving the ordering issue, but actually sometimes you're exporting the MPLS label 1, the top one, and the third one. How do you know that on the collecting process, it was not 1 and 2? So it's a small addition to say there's a position in there. Whenever it's received at the collector side, you see the first value is blah, the third one is blah, and 2 is empty. So it's a potential problem to be solved. And this is where I stop. Any feedback on this one? Paul, I believe you're in the queue, but from the previous one, right?
Sorry, yes, I didn't mean to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, hi everyone. It's Jason from ZTE. I'm presenting the draft export of ECN information in IPFix. Because we have presented during last meeting at OPSAWG and TSVWG, and considering the time is limited at this time, so I will mainly introduce the updates in this draft. After last meeting, we have received some comments from Benoit and Gary. It's related about, why you use a dedicated IPECN not to reuse an existing IP class of service. So in this draft, we address it. And also received comments from the head, which is about privacy consideration. And we also received some comments from Paul. So we have addressed the comments. And about the main updates in this version, first one is about we merged the IPv4 header ECN and IPv6 header ECN to a single IP ECN information element, which is we consider it is to align with the existing IP class of service and IP diff served code point, which is protocol agnostic. And we also added some limitations of reusing the existing IP class of service. If we reuse the existing information element, yes, it can export the 8 bits of DSCP and ECN, and then export the last 2 bits of, the 8 bits of TOS or IPv6 traffic field information, and then export the last 2 bits of ECN information. But it it's technically feasible, but may also bring some limitations, such as when in a large-scale L4S deployment, the same ECN field may have different DSCP field or DSCP values, which will bring to many different flows record, such as Atmos 264 flow record. So it will bring very big complexity. So the scale matters. And about the MPLS ECN information element, there's also an existing MPLS top label ESP field, but this information element is mainly to export the generic ESP field in MPLS label entry, and we create a new MPLS ECN information element is mainly to consider to export the ECN information, so they are very different in semantic. And in this draft version, we add a new information element, which is about to export the ECN information in MPLS M&A networks. It uses the M&A opcode to carry ECN information, which has no dependency with ESP, because ESP needs to carry both traffic class information and also, carry the ECN information. So to support this semantic, support this encapsulation in MPLS M&A, so we add this information element. So next steps, welcome your review and feedback, and we also would like to seek more co-authors on this draft. Thank you.
Any feedback on the draft? Thank you.
This Taiwan from S3C. This draft is about export segment routing policy attribute in IPFix. The background currently segment routing policy is key for TE or SLA, and there's no standardized method to correlate the observed IP traffic flow with the specific SR policy. So this draft is to define the new IPFix element to export SR policy attribute. It allows exporting process to tackle the flow record with the applied SR policy. In this document, we defined 4 new IPFix IE information elements. The first element, SR policy head-end address, and the second, the color of SR policy. The third, the endpoint of SR policy. The fourth, IE is the forwarding type of SR policy, such as SRMPLs or SRv6. In IPFix message example in the following pictures, we can see when we report 5 tuple such as source address, test, and the protocol source port and test port, then we can also report the 4 new defined IEs, such as policy head-end, color, policy endpoint, and the policy forwarding type. Use this, we can correlate the IP flow and the SR policy. Maybe we can export the SH and the IP flow, but in the complex CC scenarios, we may have no SH headers, and also the SH does not identify the SR policy. So we define the SR policy attribute to correlate the flow record. The key use cases are as the following for SLA validation or troubleshooting or TE or service monitoring. The operational constraint for the new IEs, it can report it in the head-end node, and it just complement for the existing flow IEs. That's all. Any question, comments are welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So. This is another draft export quick information in IPFix. So the background, quick is UDP-based transport protocol, and is widely used in network service. But how to collect quick information in forwarding traffic is not defined. So this document proposed exporting quick information by extending IPFix. In this document, we defined 7 information elements to export quick information. Quick head flag, quick version, quick test connection ID, quick source connection ID, and quick packet number, quick frame type, also the quick string ID. The update of this draft, it was presented at IETF 122 and 124. The comments from Matt, Benoit, and Chongfeng, and we updated the draft from version 3 to version 4. The first update, we add clarification that the term flow in this document to align with the IPFix destination. The second update, we enhance the description of packet discard monitoring, aligning with the standardized discuss reporting framework. The third update will refine the language and describe how quick information is associated with IPFix flow records. For both quick, long, and short header packets. We also add the new co-author, Xueting Li. This draft is statable, so we co-authors would like to ask for adoption code. Thanks.
So can you go back to, do I have people in the queue first?
No.
No, okay. Can you go back? Okay, 7 information elements.
Yeah.
So you define something about the use cases in your draft, right? The different use cases in the section where use case.
Yeah.
Do you use all of these 7 in the use cases?
Yes. It can be 2 different packet, the long packet and the short packet, which will use different information elements.
Okay, so in the use cases you're defining in this section, you are using all of these 7 in the use cases, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I want to check that.
Thanks.
So this draft has been printed multiple times. There were feedback in previously. We would like to understand if there is some interest in the working group to adopt this. So do you want to run a poll now? Oh, it's there already. Okay. I'm always interested whenever someone says, no, we don't want to do it.
Nope, they just removed themselves.
All right, problem solved. Okay.
I think we can, there's some, obviously 91, we'd like to see more, but I think we can run a poll on the list, adoption on the list on this. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Good afternoon. Thanks for the chairs and Chongfeng to giving me this opportunity to present our draft export of source address validation information in the IPFix. So another IPFix draft. Today I will mainly go through the updates of the draft. Before that, I'm going to give a brief preview of the draft idea. So the problem we encounter is that SAP lacks operational visibility, and to address this problem, we design new IPFix information elements to export the context. The elements are listed below, and they cover the general SAF modes applied in the network, the specific sub-rule contents, and the sub-policy actions that is adopted in the data plan. So we, in this new version, we mainly made 3 core updates, which are all textual updates. So no design changes for the elements are made. These textual updates is to clarify the scope of the draft. in 3 ways: what we monitor, what we report, and how we specify. I will go through these in details in the following slides. So the first update is about terminology. In version 1, we use self-effectiveness monitoring. The problem of effectiveness is that it implies that we evaluate how SOV works, whether SOV was actually enabled, what the false positive or negative rates are. But this is a bigger question which IPFix cannot answer. So in version 2, we revised it into self-enforcement monitoring. To clarify this, the draft only observe and report what happened. So the effectiveness to enforcement, this is the first change. And the second change is closely related to the first one. In version 1, some sentences were written as if we already made a claim that the packet is definitely spoofed. This is an assertion of ground truth, but IPFix does not assert any ground truth. It only report what was observed. So we revised the language in version 2 to clarify the scope that IPFix only report what was observed. And the third update is about flexibility. In version 1, we described a way to associate SOV data records with packet level details using an element called selection sequence ID. But we realized that this is implementation details. We should not prescribe any associate method previously. We should leave the flexibility to the implementers. So we removed the association method in version 2 to leave the flexibility to the implementers to choose their own approach. So this is the third change. So to summarize the 3 updates, we changed the term effectiveness to enforcement, and we changed the language of asserting any ground truth to reporting observations only, and we removed some specific implementations. So the next step of this draft would be, we would like to call for group working adoption. Any questions or discussions are welcome.
Sorry, Jeff, can you take it to the list? We are way out of time because we still have 2 more presentations. So thanks, Jeff. We will discuss adoption on the list with Benoit, and I will discuss it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and we have 2 more presentations. We're hoping you can be quick and we can get through both of them in record time.
Okay, I'll be quick. The last IPFix document, I'm Yao from ZT, BGP VP information. So this draft defines 4 new IPFix information elements for monitoring BGP VPN traffic flows, especially for obtaining the egress piece information. The first 2 elements is generic information elements for BGP VPN next hop IP address, and especially for SRv6 VPN traffics, and a third and the fourth information element are defined. So you can choose what to use for SRv6 VPN. So it has been presented in OPSAWG and BES last IETF. So the comments we get from BES from Stefan is what's the relationship between the generic BGP next hop IP address and the new BGP VPN next hop IP address. So how to operate between them. So it should be explained the updates in the next slide. And Chongfeng's comment is why not obtain the egress IP information from the network controller, which configures the VPN rather than via IPFix from the device. So the answer is the first, controller-based lookup requires different rules to derive the egress PE based on various VPN configuration policies. So, and the second is IPFix serves as an independent data plane verification, which is essential for detecting control plane versus data plane differences. And also thank to Thomas' comments to say that this seems workable. And about the updates. So the first, we have a more precise definition of the BGP VPN next hop IP address. So now it represents the IP next hop address of the matched BGP VPN route. For example, from the corresponding entry in the VPN specific BGP routing information base or VF table. And about the operational considerations of the generic BGP next hop and the VPN specific BGP VPN next hop. And for VPN flows, you should use the VPN specific information elements rather than the generic ones. So exporting both of them at the same time is not recommended to avoid semantic overlap. And if both appear in the record, collectors should prioritize the VPN specific IEs as they are more precise. And if only the generic information element is present, its routing context, for example, whether it's a BGP unicast next hop or BGP VPN next hop, cannot be determined from the information element alone. So you may need extra information. And thanks for Paul's review. And we've just update a new version. So welcome further feedback and comments, and we'll refine it. And it's pending implementation, not all of them, but about the SRv6 VPN part. And we request to consider or the working group to consider adoption, maybe after your working group's decision, where it belongs to.
So even though we ran one poll, Benoit and I will discuss with the chairs for all of the IPFix documents that requested adoption. We'll discuss where that adoption should occur. So we will handle the asks for adoption calls. Thanks. Last presentation. I'm sorry for the timing, the way it worked out. As quick as you can get to the salient points, that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Jing Zhao from China Unicom. I will quickly introduce our draft problem statement for network resilience. First, I will explain why network resilience is needed, because the traditional reliability mechanisms mainly address predefined and relatively isolated failures. For example, link and node protection, fast rerouter, and recall regions. But however, operational insistent, increasing involve, correlate, and cascading failures, configuration and policy errors. This exists a resilience gap. The network should not only recover from the known failures, it should be able to anticipate, detect content, adapt, and learn. So in this slide, we list where the resilience instance comes from. The failure sources involve the physical infrastructure failures, configuration and operational errors, network planning and design defect, control plane and practical anomalies, degree and partial degradation, and the security incident. And one incident may involve several failure sources at the same time. So in this slide, we list the cross-cutting challenges. For example, the correlated and the cascading failures, resource existence and the loss of recovery capabilities, and the recovery system's reliability. So in here, we can see a life cycle view of network failures. So we think the network resilience need to cover pre-event, in-event, and post-event, the 3 stages. And based on the life cycle, here we summarize the key capabilities for network resilience. Resilience is not able about faster recovery. It requires the network to anticipate, content, adapt, and learn from complex failures. Like the risk awareness validation, resource aware protection, coordinated fair containment. And here we show scenarios that local failures become a large-scale failures. And the next step, we want to define resilience capabilities and requirements for one or more network domains, and explore protocol and mechanisms enhancements, develop best current practices for resilience enhancement, and the below is the related draft about practices. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Jing. We're out of time, but I do have comments. I will send them to the list. So thank you for this. Look for an email from me soon. Thank you, and thanks all to OPSAWG participants. As I mentioned, we will consider all the calls for adoption that have been asked. We'll discuss the IP fix with our ADs to find the right places for them. And we hope you have a great rest of your IETF 126 is fantastic.
Thank you.